Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thanks for being here. And we're back to missing 411 cases. And we are going to get right into it with two cases. One from British Columbia and Alberta, and one from California. And they're very fascinating cases. And researchers came up with them not too long ago, and they are head turners. Now, I want you guys to keep telling me if you've been unsubscribed. Check, see if you're subscribed. If you're not, and you were, let me know. Let me tell you what's happening. I want to keep you informed so that you're not shocked whenever I disappear. And it may happen very soon. So again, there's an intermediary between myself and YouTube. And big content providers have to have this. And they take a percentage of my earnings for doing this job. I've been around for a number of years. I've never used them up until the last month. And I reached out to them and I asked them to intervene. I asked them to intervene because thousands of you are being forcibly unsubscribed. Others of you are not being notified when a video of mine comes up. Now, there's a lot of ways to get rid of somebody in the YouTube space. Number one way, just say you violated their terms and you're gone. Okay? And that happens. We all know that happens. How do we know that happens? Because we've seen a lot of YouTubers just disappear. Another way. A YouTuber like me can get 3 strikes. Let's say I put on someone else's content and I just put his on my screen. Just like thousands. Just like hundreds of people have done in my videos and the movies I've made. Now, somebody puts on one of my videos on their channel. We have people that we pay that have the linkage to go into YouTube and file a strike against them. The idiots out there that do this get a strike. 3 strikes, your channel is gone. About 6 months ago, one person had on 2 of my videos. They had 2 strikes in 2 seconds. So if you're an idiot out there and you want to do this, that's up to you. I don't play that game. I don't put on other people's content. I don't use bad language. I understand community violations. And so far, I've been running a pretty clean ship. Who knows? They make up something and get rid of me. I don't know. But I want you to remember something. That I still have my websites. CanAm, like Canadian American, CanAmMissing.com. NA, like North America, BigfootSearch.com. And I know a lot of you don't like the news. And I'm not pushing you there. But if for some reason I disappear here, you can find me on Rumble at David Paulides, Missing 411 presents the factual news. Okay, enough of that. So I contacted YouTube a month ago, explained to them, and I actually cited, it took me probably 4 hours one day, and I sent them about 4 pages worth of comments from you saying that you've been unsubscribed. This was a month ago. Got a note back from YouTube. Oh, your channel looks just fine. YouTube can't find anything wrong. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked out better. Complete garbage. Lip service. And I fired a note back saying, why do I even have you guys? If you're not willing to go to the plate for the people that are paying your bills, why are you even here? So the thought that I'm going to get any satisfaction out of them, that isn't going to happen. Now, just in the last month, my subscriber base and my compensation base And my hours viewed have gone down at 35%. Impossible. It's impossible. I'm sorry. There's no way I believe that. Nobody here believes that. None of the consultants we've seen believe it. Except our partner that we have to work with. Oh, they believe it because YouTube told them. Oh, yeah. No, not. So they're going to destroy the channel by unsubscribing you and not notifying you of when my video's up. Now, the only way it's going to ever work is if all of you forcibly find me each time. Here's the issue with that. I can't ask anybody to do that. I can't expect people to do that. Because just over an amount of time, old people fall out and new people are found. But when they don't advertise the channel, I can't find any new people. The rate of growth on my end should be about 10% per month. That's right. About 40,000 people per month should be mine. I'm not even getting a 1% growth. And the consultants we employed said, Dave, impossible. As well known as you are, it's impossible. So I'm left with a real conundrum. And I've stated this before. Some of you are going to get disappointed that I keep telling you, but when it happens, and I'm not here, I don't want you guys to be surprised. And I know a lot of you will be disappointed, and the only way it will ever work is when I go to a different platform and I charge for $5 per month for access. I know I'll lose 99% of you. I realize that. Friends, it's not working here. And I can't get any satisfaction. Nobody seems to care. I'm not talking about you. You guys are great. I'm talking about YouTube. So, that's the update. I'll stay on as long as I can. I'm sure I'm going to get a strike in the next month for what I'm saying right here. It's just going to happen. I don't care. I don't care. And to say I'm frustrated doesn't even begin to cover the hatred I have for this platform at this point. I'm sorry. All right, let's get on to the stories. The first one is a case nobody's ever talked about. A man named Paul Nesgis, Nesgiss, 39 years old, went missing July 28, 1945, at about 4 o'clock p.m. He resided in a small town called Paulides. He was married. He had 2 daughters and a son. And he was a 9-year forest ranger. And he was first employed in Felton in Santa Cruz County. Felton is just a ways up the valley from Santa Cruz. Beautiful little town. You should go see it. And he became the assistant ranger in a city called King City. He was born in San Jose. And his parents still lived there at this time. And he had a brother that was also a ranger. Now, Paul had done a whole lot of different work. Planted trees, fought fires, done management, and had worked his way up the food chain. And being an assistant ranger, being number 2 man in charge of an office, that was a big deal. Now, that area that he was in is kind of near the coast, but also includes some very dry land inland, and is right on the verge of Fresno County, which we have talked about before. Now, July 28th, 1945, there was a fire burning, and he was leading a bulldozer crew that was fighting a fire on what was called the Williams Peak Fire. And he was supervising a man named Ed Gates, who was a cat skinner. Well, Ed got trapped in his cat on a dead-end canyon and died on the side of Williams Peak when fire overcame his dozer. Now, everybody knew that Paul was with Ed, wouldn't have left. And he was his eyes and ears and was there to protect him. Well, where this happened is right about where Monterey County joins Fresno County. Let me show you. So here is a map. Central California coast. This is Monterey, Carmel by the sea. This is King City. And Soledad, Salinas. And this is where the fire was burning. Now remember, in the past, we've talked about Coalinga and Fresno. So you can see where those are at. And this is Interstate 5 that goes up the middle of the California. So this is where the fire was burning. Pretty desolate area. Could be pretty dry. A pretty lonely part of the state. Now, just so you know, Morro Bay is right here. If you've never been there, it's gorgeous. Cambria, one of the most beautiful cities in the state of California. Another gorgeous place. Fire burning there. Now, Nesgis was with Gates when the fire overtook Gates. Everybody thought he was. Everybody knew he was. But when the firefighters got in there and found that Gates was deceased, they found his body on the dozer. They started looking for Paul. Couldn't find him. Troubling. Well, they thought that he might have been in the area where the ground was singed heavily. And they thought they'd just have to search him out and find his body. Well, they searched for 3 days, didn't find anything. The head ranger makes a call to a place called Camp Roberts. And they had 150 soldiers there. And the Forest Service ranger asked for the military to send him 150 soldiers to search for Paul. Sheriff stated he was confused. Said Paul should have been found right away. Couldn't believe he wasn't found and didn't quite understand what was happening. They knew that he was a super good ranger, reliable, wouldn't have left his post, but just couldn't understand where he was. Now, Paul had been on the fire for 48 hours when this happened. And the comment was that there was no place to go. They should have found him right away. This was a 2,000-acre fire, and they initially thought that he was consumed in that fire. And they used those soldiers to search over the area that had already been searched for 3 days. They didn't find him. Then they started expanding out, going into the surrounding areas. Didn't find him. August 14th, the chief ranger for the area, his name was Leslie Gum. He made an odd statement. He said Paul may be an amnesia victim brought on by emotional shock. It's August 14th. What'd you think about this? For a chief ranger to say that, how sure do you think he was that Paul wasn't in that search area? I think for him to say it, he had to have been like 99% sure, because you don't want to be embarrassed. But they couldn't find him. And they knew if Paul was in his right mind and he was alive, he wouldn't be running. So they attributed it to amnesia. August 28th, search continued. They had about 100 people per day. Over another 2-week span and found nothing. They went over the same area multiple times. They kept spreading out, covering the mountain, weren't finding anything. September 1st, the primary search was over by the sheriff, the Forest Service, the state foresters. Everyone had given up except family, friends, and foresters that were friends of the brother. And I can tell you that this is a very hard thing to go through. You're trying to get closure, you're trying to understand. In the back of your mind, you're praying that he's running somewhere and has amnesia. You're praying for that, really. Because the alternative is you're going to walk and stumble over a body. Well, the family and friends keep searching. September 9th. Now remember, this happened on July 28th. September 9th. Essentially, all the searchers had given up. 1,000 feet from the edge of the fire. 1,000 feet from the edge of the fire. From a 2,000-acre blaze. Searchers come across a hand that's laying there on the ground. Well, they know they're onto it now. No, nobody else is missing. 30 feet away, they find Paul's body. How did they know it was Paul's body? He was ID'd by paperwork from the forest fire, and his ID was in his pocket. But now hold your taters. I've read probably 7, 8, 9,000 search and rescue reports. Only 3 times. Only 3. In that many thousand of reports have I ever heard this. The body was found, but they didn't find the head. No head. They searched for 2 days. They never found his head. The body was found on the mountain slope where the fire was at 223 days after he went missing. I'm sorry, 23 days. I'm sorry, I got the numbers wrong. He disappeared on July 28th, and on September 9th they found this on a mountain slope. So there's a massive soldier search. He wasn't found. 150 searchers for 2 weeks. Massive private search and forester search. Didn't find him. Found by a private party. Found in an area that was previously searched. But in reviewing this, I kept looking and looking that somebody would say something about a missing head. Oh, how odd is that? Or, there was animal predation to the body or something. Nothing. There was no statement about animal predation to the body. No statement about possible animal predation taking the head. No statement about possible crime. Nothing. Let me explain something to you. Removing a head from a body is very difficult. I don't care what anybody says. I've gone to coroner's hearings. I've watched films that would just make you nauseated, made for police about forensics, etc. Removing a head from a body is very hard. Now, could it have been a bear? There were black bear in that area then? But if there was a black bear that did this, I would think that the black bear would have eaten part of the body as well, and that was never stated. I think it would have been. So, that's Paul Nesgis. I don't believe that anybody could have missed his body 1,000 feet from the main part of the fire. No, sorry. I don't believe it. Next case. A very unusual case. I usually don't talk about missing planes too often, except in my book, Missing 411 Law, Land, Air, and Water. I talked about a whole series of planes that disappeared. Now this case, not in that book, but it's quite a head turner. It involves 2 people that were dating. Alex Simons, 21, and Sidney Robillard, also 21, missing June 8th, 2017, from Kamloops, British Columbia. That's a picture of Alex and Sidney. They'd been dating a long time. They were very tight. Both of them loved to fly. She'd flown with him many times in the past. This is a picture of Alex flying. Extremely competent pilot, according to the people at the flight agency. Now Alex was flying a Piper Warrior aircraft. Everybody that knew Alex knew he always wanted to be a bush pilot since he was in 10th grade. Everything about his life focused on flying. He ended up getting his private pilot's license in March 2017 in Lethbridge. And he got it at a flight school called Excel Flight Training. And it was the same group that owned the Piper Warrior that rented the Piper Warrior to him. Now, here's a picture of the exact plane that disappeared. Now, it's really hard to see over here on the side, but the fuselage number was C as in Charles, G as in George, D as in David, T as in Tom, K as in King, C/GDTK. Nice looking plane. Fine for 2 people and some luggage. Now, these two were longtime boyfriend, girlfriend. Sidney enjoyed flying with Alex. Told her mom that he was a real competent pilot, very safety conscious. Well, on June 8th at 8:35 a.m., their trip started. Alex rented the Piper Warrior in Lethbridge and flew nonstop to Cranbrook, British Columbia, where they landed and refueled. Let me give you the logistics on this. So they left Lethbridge. Lethbridge is just north. There's Montana, just north of Montana in Alberta. This is Calgary. This is Banff National Park. They left Lethbridge, flew due west, landed in Cranbrook. They then, at 2 p.m., left Cranbrook en route to Kamloops. Now, they're crossing the Continental Divide here with some really big mountains and some scenery that would just turn anybody's head. It's just so gorgeous. This is the U.S. border in here. This is Montana, Idaho, Washington. Montana, Idaho, Washington, Canada. Alberta. And then this is British Columbia. Okay? Always helps me to have some visual go up about this. So when the couple landed, they used the restroom, they got out. They were getting the plane refueled. There was a minor issue that the credit card scanners at the airport weren't going down, weren't reading credit cards correctly. They were delayed for a while eventually the credit card was approved and they left. They were advised by air traffic control that the weather to the west where they were going was deteriorating rapidly. Now, air traffic control never tells anyone you can't fly. That's a choice of the pilot. Alex made a decision to go, and they left at 2 o'clock. Now, I'm telling you that they flew over some mountains that were just, on a 1 to 10, they were at 10 in gorgeous and beauty. And they were anywhere from 10 to 11,000 feet in height. They were tall mountains. Now, one thing that, when I did the research on this, I was pretty stunned. The aircraft had an aircraft personal locator beacon on it. A transmitter. If it crashed, beep, 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 transmitter would go off. Now, when I was a kid, my dad had a plane. We flew to Mexico a bunch of times. And we had one of these handheld transmitters on board with us. I remember my dad saying it would cost a lot of money, but he says we had to have it. Not according to the law, but he just thought safety-wise we need to have it. It was the size of one of those real large cell phones. had like a strange antenna on it, and you could activate it by hand or it was shock activated. I could just remember that every time we flew, my dad would make sure batteries were charged, it was working properly, and it was sitting in the front seat between him and I. It was always me and my dad in the front seat, my mom and my sister in the back, and I had gone through like 20 hours of flight training to just keep the plane flying straight and level. That's all my dad really wanted me to do so he could relax sometimes. Well, in this incident, it had the locator beacon on it. Well, at 6:22 that night, the RCMP is notified in Kamloops that this plane is overdue. So initially, the National Center on Response for British Columbia puts the gears in motion and starts monitoring that transmission number to see if they can hear any transmissions coming from a plane in that area. Well, in Kamloops, the next day, they started to put together a search and rescue, and they thought they heard a slight transmission from out there in the west somewhere. Well, they put 18 Royal Canadian Air Force planes into the sky that next day and flew them straight for 12 days. A huge response. The commander said that they flew 37,500 kilometers, square miles, and searched it. They also used 137 volunteer pilots, and every day they had at least 10 aircraft in the sky. Aircraft meaning between planes and helicopters. Now there was one man who was one of the searchers, and this is about 10 days into the search. He says, he's interviewed. We have the technology to send a photo back from Pluto, but we can't find a missing plane on Earth. When I read that quote, you know what I thought of? MH370, a plane that was about 20 times the size that Alex was flying. Yeah, where's that? Exactly. Now, there's a man named Fred Kery, who is the commander for all the search efforts by private pilots. And he was interviewed, and they asked him, what do you think happened? He says, I'll just tell you what I think. He says, they just disappeared off the face of the earth. That's what he said. Whoa. There were additional searches made by many private organizations since 2017. And there have been thousands of planes that have crossed that same path, and they've never seen a crashed plane on the ground. There was never a call for help by Alex. What happened? Hold your taters. Here's something that I investigated myself. See what you think, because it is never stated anywhere what I'm going to tell you. Now, the missing plane is a Piper. It's a PA 28-161, brought to Canada October 23rd, 2008. Its flight number painted on the side is C-GDTK. And again, it's white with blue trim. Horrible, horrible, horrible colors for flying through tall mountains with snow, which there was snow on the ground when they flew over them. Horrible. So that's their plane. December 15th, 1998, a Cessna 172 crashed near Liverpool, Nova Scotia. The plane made an initial climb from the airport at Liverpool, crashed and killed 2 people on board. Their crash beacon activated. And there were 2 brothers on the plane that were both killed, both from Halifax. You won't believe this. Do you know what the painted on number on the side of that plane was? C-C-GDTK. The same number as was on the side of the plane that Alex was flying. It appears that Canada recycled the number and put it on another plane. I don't know, folks. Maybe it's just me and you'll think I'm an idiot, but I wouldn't want that number on the side of my plane now. I'm sorry. I think it's an eerie thing to do, especially since there's unlimited numbers. I don't know. A lot of people don't like personal opinion, but that's just my personal opinion on this. Now, what do I think happened to Alex and Sidney? There aren't a lot of couples that disappear in this world. But oddly enough, there's another set of couples that disappeared hiking in northern BC that's in the Canada book that kind of reminded me of these two. Now, the other couple that disappeared, they were dating. One was a government attaché and one was a physician. They were never found either. Now, I just telling you the facts. I have so much information in my head that rolls around, and then something like this comes over and it reminds me of something else that I've written about. Well, I know that Alex and Sidney's parents are just crushed, as completely understandable. And to not know what happened to your kids. Now, the commander of the RCAF search teams stated that they flew the route that they thought these two would have flown, the straight route between the 2 points, and then they also flew other routes that they thought these two would have flown to get away from weather. Didn't find anything anywhere. Should have found something. The beacon should have went off. What's with that? So thanks for being here, folks. I really appreciate you. And without you, I don't exist. So thank you. And please remember, just released my new book, Missing 411 Washington. And you can get it at our website, NA, like North America, nabigfootsearch.com. Go to the online store and you'll see the book. Please share this on your online media. I'd greatly appreciate it. Do something nice for someone today, tomorrow, or the next day when you're out. Costs nothing. It's a kindness revolution. Paulides out.